You're watching Lore of the Internet, and this is 24 stories of the adult equivalent of calling your teacher mom. This happened to a coworker years and years ago. We were tellers at a local bank, and every Christmas we had tiny candy canes to give to the kids of customers. One guy came through with his. With his transaction, he had cash back. Teller 1 was helping him. She proceeds to give him his cash in a $100 bill and the candy cane for his kid. He looks at her and says, "Could I have that broken up?" She then proceeds to bash the candy cane to a pulp with my stapler and gives it back to him. Teller 2 just looked at her after the dude says thanks and drove off and said, "I think he meant the $100 bill." I will remember that story forever. Thanks for the gold. This is my favorite story from working there. We had a good group. I still love those people. I've worked in restaurants since I was 16. When I bring somebody to a table, I say enjoy. After any drink or plate of food I put down at the table, I do the same. Well, I guess it was just inevitable that when a man asked me where the washroom was, I directed him and told him to enjoy. When talking with family, we always ended our calls with "I love you." So I'm on call with my longtime assistant, and as the call ends, without thinking, I say "I love," and I stop, horrified, and I couldn't think of how to finish it. Thank God she had a sense of humor and said, "Oh, come on now, you can say it. Go ahead. Tell me you love me." So I did, and we laughed about it for years. I'm one of those never save numbers in my phone kind of guys. When I was in the army, I was stationed somewhere with a different area code than mine and got talking to a local girl. Things were getting heated one night over text, so we were sending raunchy things back and forth. I wasn't paying attention for a moment and sent a message to the wrong person by mistake. My sergeant replied, "Alright, I'm not really into that, but make sure you show up to formation in the morning." Not me, but my mom. She was in a meeting and not paying attention for whatever reason. Then someone asked her a question and she responded with, "What's that, honey?" It made me crack up for so long. My old boss and my husband's names were one letter apart. I worked in daycare, so the owner and the staff often texted one another, update each other on the kids, any issues parents had, and general questions. My husband was working third, and I was working first. We didn't get to see each other much, and most of our conversation was done via text. On my very first week, I was in a rush after getting into work, and texted my husband the same thing I always texted him when I got into work. "Hey babe, I'm here. I hope your night was awesome as you are. I love you so much, and dinner is in the crock pot." When I went on break, I checked my phone. Nothing back from my husband, but my boss had texted me. It reads, "Love you too. Mwah." I was so confused until I looked back at the message and realized I had sent her the text meant for my husband. Changed her contact name to Boss after that one. Thank God she had a good sense of humor about it. I'm a teacher. I unthinkingly scolded my dog the other day with "follow the directions." We kind of just stared at each other for a second while I realized how ridiculous I sounded. I refer to the pediatrician as the veterinarian for the first year or two of our kid's life. Even did it in the office and over phone with the staff. Yes, we had pets long before we had kids. Thankfully, they claimed to find it charming and reported I wasn't the first to make the mistake. I was given a lift home by a colleague from work once, and when he stopped to let me out of the car, I leaned in for a kiss as it was what I would do to my wife. Thankfully, he was looking the other way at the time. Once I was in the airport and I went to get a sandwich. I stood at the counter to tell the worker to give me a turkey sandwich, which he prepared. He handed it to me and his coworker noticed he didn't microwave it. So he extended his hand to me over the glass container thingies which have food displayed in them, so he can take it to the microwave. I didn't understand why he was extending his hand, so I smiled and shook it. He laughed and pointed at my food and told me he has to heat it. I felt dumb as hell. On my way back from a client meeting with one of the partners, he wasn't paying attention when the light turned green and I said, "Hey babe, you gotta go." And then I died. What happened? They died. I once went to the wrong floor of my apartment building and tried to open the wrong apartment. I stood there jiggling the doorknob for a few minutes before realizing what I had done and fucking booking it up the stairs before the resident came out to see what the fuck was happening. I called my housekeeper Daddy instead of Darcy. It was an autocorrect mistake in a text, but I didn't notice for 24 hours when I realized she never texted me back. I was absolutely mortified, but she thought it was hilarious. When she texted me 2 weeks later, her opening line was, "Who's your daddy?" I actually lost my mind in a meeting reading that. She's the sweetest older lady, and now my nickname for her is Daddy. I have a friend who used to work as a nursery school teacher and then went to a job in an office. The transition was not easy. Apparently she started her first presentation by saying, "Alright everyone, quiet down, fingers on lips." The reason she tells me the story is that half the people in the room, including her immediate boss, did it instinctively. I was out working with my dad once and his client called and asked for rates. I told him, and when he said, "Okay, thank you," I said, "I love you," and hung up. It was strange. We had to clean his carpet the next day. He was about 6'2", 300 pounds of pure black badassery. When we were leaving, he stopped me and asked if I was the one that talked to him the day prior, and I said, "Yeah." He real gently said, "I love you too." And I just lost it. Once I got pulled over for speeding, the officer, as he was leaving, said, "Try to drive safer." And I said, "You too," and immediately regretted it. I was leaving an interview that had gone well, and the hiring manager gestured toward the door with her arm, which my brain read as an open arm gesture inviting a hug, and instinctively went in for one. I didn't get that job. I accidentally called my husband the cutesy name I call our dog in the same cutesy voice. We both just pretended it didn't happen. I was at a church, and I don't often go to them, but it was for a christening. A lady came around saying, "Peace be with you." I replied, "Nice to meet you too," mishearing what she said. Everybody was laughing. We were shopping in a big supermarket with my husband, went for a quick wee, and when I returned, I saw he put stuff we didn't usually buy in the trolley, so I demanded to know why he was putting all this shit in. Of course, it wasn't him, but some other bloke who looked terrified by a stranger telling him off. I was in the exit row of a flight the other day. Attendant starts explaining stuff and asks us if we can do it. While all this is going on, she's gesturing with one of the manuals. I thought she was handing it over to us to look at, so I try to grab it and she doesn't let go. She gives me an odd look and just puts it back in the pocket and leaves. I felt like an absolute idiot. I had a meeting for work and there was a guy there who introduced himself to me as Kevin and then asked who I was. I introduced myself back to him as Kevin. I'm a female and my name is not Kevin. I'm going to think about that for the rest of my life. I said sorry when I walked myself into a door. I was at an airport buying gifts because I forgot to buy them earlier, so I picked up some chocolate and waited in the queue. I heard all the people behind the counter were saying, "Have a good flight," and thought, "Don't say you too," because they work there and obviously aren't going to fly home. It comes to my time to pay and it goes well, and the cashier says, "Thanks sir, have a nice flight," which I'll respond with, "Yeah, you too?" While saying it, I knew I couldn't stop just mid-word, so I carried on and walked away very quickly. If anyone has any similar stories, feel free to share them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this content, feel free to like or subscribe. Until then, we'll see you in the next video.